A global language used by nearly 2 billion people across the world. 1,500 years ago, only 3 tribes spoke it. The language is English. We're asking how it became as far-reaching as it is today.
Yeah, joining us is Professor Bill Lucas, who's been researching all the places that have most influenced the English language, and he's now part of a campaign to find out more places that have left their mark on it. And he's joining us today because today is English Language Day, for a very special reason, Bill.
And that reason is that on the 13th of October in 1362, for the first time ever, the Parliament in London was opened in English. The Normans had been here for nearly 2 centuries, but still French was the prevailing language. And suddenly a brave Chancellor stood up and said, from now onwards, you can plead in English, and it became known as the Statute of Pleading.
Was everyone speaking English at the time, in the villages, in everyday life?
Well, think of an invasion. So a lot of the ordinary people would still be speaking what we might think of as Old English. And the ruling classes all pretty much Norman French speaking. So for a long while, the powers that be using the language of French or possibly Latin, if it were in the law.
So this is the triumph of English over an invading language, really, and it's triumphs across the world.
Kind of. It's a sort of friendly triumph. I mean, I prefer not to think of
very polite English triumph.
OK, a polite English triumph. So we're not. This is not about world domination. In fact, the glorious thing about the English language is its many different incarnations. So you can have language exploding in Singapore, in Chennai, in China. Right now, you've had a theme running through this programme today. And we're really interested in finding out, so where are the places that have left their footprint on the English language? And we'd love your watchers to send in those places to the English Project. That's www.englishproject.org. And tell us, why do you think this place has really left its footprint?
Well, give me an example of that. Because how can a place have an impact on a language?
Well, it's probably the thing that's happened in the place.
Right.
So that would be fair, just as the opening of Parliament is the place, but it was probably the act. So it could be an invasion, as you said already. So when we have invaded other places across the world, I'm afraid, or when our sailors have landed there, we've brought the English of whichever part of England the people who were in that ship spoke. Or when a technological advance happens. I mean, let me try something on you. Where was Tim Berners-Lee when he invented the internet? So that's a question for your watchers. The answer is Geneva, and it's that kind of question. Where was Twitter invented? Where did Facebook begin? Where did we start texting? I mean, those are just examples of perhaps the last.
And all of those formats predominantly using English.
All of those formats predominantly helping to evolve the language of English that we're speaking now. And it's fluid. It's changing. We're coining new words like there was no tomorrow. If every year there's another supplement to the OED published showing those new words.
Do you enjoy the development of the English language? I mean, I'm a bit of a purist, and I do think that some words are just plain annoying and rude, and they shouldn't be in the English language, like amalgamations of words I don't enjoy. But or am I just not embracing the times?
Naga, I'm afraid you're not embracing the times here. I mean, the greatest coiner of all new words was William Shakespeare. So he began putting words before words and putting words after words, coining, making new words, using words most extraordinarily. The most unkindest cut of all is not grammatical, you might say. So he was playful with his language.
He didn't have to deal with chillax.
He did not have to do with chillax or in it or all those other things. And of course there are lots and lots of different registers. So the English that you speak here is perhaps, dare I say, different from the English that you speak over your kitchen table in your home, or different from the English that you speak when you're with friends in a different context.
We were talking about China this morning and the economy and George Osborne going out there. I just wonder, if you were, say, I know, a German teenager going to school or picking his equivalent of GCSEs at the moment, is he going to be really that useful speaking English in the future, or what about Mandarin? I mean, is English going to be as dominant in the future?
Well, if you're going to speak 2 languages, then I guess it might be English and Mandarin. Most people are opting
and one?
Well, probably English, because although China is very, very much spoken, it's mainly spoken by Chinese, whereas English is spoken by almost every person across the world. And it's the language of science, it's the language of broadcasting, it's the language of law, it's the language of sport, so it's got traction.
We have to put a full stop on the end of this conversation. Bill?
Semicolon.
OK, a semicolon. Bill, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So much for the purist, eh? 8:50. Ben has this morning.